Hey everyone, well welcome back for chapter 5 of the book of Revelation. I'm here again with my lovely mother-in-law Bev, and today we are going to be picking up where we left off yesterday. So this is really the second chapter in the second section of the book of Revelation. So what we're looking at today is really the fact that Jesus alone is worthy for what God has called him to do. And as we're about to read, and I know you and I were just talking about it before we filmed, this chapter I really feel like highlights more than any other the qualifications for Jesus' work, his ministry, everything that he did. It really highlights that. I mean, you read about it in the Gospels, but this almost gives you a view into heaven as far as what was happening with his work.
Ben, before we get started on chapter 5, can I just take a moment to recap who the four living creatures are?
Yeah, I think that would be important. So again, if you missed the chapter from yesterday, go back and watch that because it's going to explain a little bit more about what we're going to talk about here. It's going to sound weird if you haven't gone back to the previous chapter, but yeah, by all means, go ahead and recap that a little bit for us.
We're going to see these four living creatures in this chapter, some characteristics here mentioned in these four living creatures here.
Okay.
So the four living creatures are, the first one is the lion, the lion of the tribe of Judah,
right?
The king. The second is the ox. An ox is a burden bearer. They would have a yoke on them that they would go and plow the field so you could plant the seeds, you have some food to eat, and they would harvest out, thresh the wheat, the grain out of the...
Kind of all the work that you have to do, they're really the ones doing
the work.
Okay.
And the place where Jesus did the most bearing of the burden was at the cross.
Wow.
He bore our burden of sin and death and pain and sorrow at the cross. The third, these are all aspects of Jesus. The third is a man. Jesus is called the Son of Man. He came down as man so he could take our place on the cross. And the fourth one is a flying eagle. Now, notice this, he's in the north, on top of the earth, and he isn't touching the ground. He's not on the earth. He's not perched somewhere. He's flying. The others are all on the earth.
Right.
The flying eagle represents that Jesus is the Son of God.
Okay.
Up into the air, in heaven.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Sees all things.
Not limited just to being right here.
And if he wasn't the Son of God, we could never become sons and daughters of God again. And so the four living creatures are every believer in Jesus, everyone who receives those qualifications of Jesus. They have crossed from the death camp to life eternal. So that's why they're called the four living creatures. Four being the number of the earth from north, south, east, and west, from anywhere in the whole earth.
Wow.
So that's who the four living creatures are.
Okay.
And Jesus has presented them faultless before the Father. And so God the Father sees them as being right there, across that barrier, the sea of glass, at the very throne room of God.
Yeah.
And ruling and reigning from there.
Right.
Even while they're reigning on earth.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
Look, I told you, if you haven't gone and watched the chapter yet and you're like, what are they talking about? Go back and watch the previous chapter. It'll help you out so much. It's a lot of symbolism with these four living creatures. We spent a lot of time talking about it yesterday, and you really need to understand that before. Anyways, all right.
So we rule and reign on this earth from the heavenly throne, really.
Yes.
We have his authority down here as kings from there, here, and as priests to bring others into the sonship of sons and daughters of God.
I've heard that called delegated authority, really, that it's given to us. It's
Jesus.
Kind of, somebody gave me an example once that helped me out a lot. They said just kind of like a police officer, if he's out in the middle of an intersection directing traffic, and a big, semi-truck trailer comes up to him, and he puts his hand up and tells it to stop. Well, he himself doesn't have the physical power to actually stop that truck on his own, but it's that designated authority. It's the authority of the full government of the United States behind him that truck driver recognizes, I better stop because he's telling me to.
Excellent illustration.
Wow, okay.
Awesome. Now I'd like to just move right into one of my favorite chapters of the whole book of Revelation.
Chapter 5.
Chapter 5.
Okay.
And John sees God seated right there on the throne, and in his right hand is a scroll written on both sides that's sealed up with 7 seals.
Okay.
Now, immediately I start thinking Old Testament. Does this sound like anything before? And it hit me. It's kind of like Moses in the Old Testament. Moses led the children of Israel out of Egypt into the wilderness on their way to the Canaan land.
Right.
And God had them stop at the mountain of God, Mount Sinai. And there he said, I'm going to talk to my people here. So he had them all around this mountain. They were camped right there. And God spoke. And he spoke the 10 Commandments out loud to the people of Israel.
Yeah. Now, you pointed this out to me. It was really interesting. We actually went back, and Bev was showing me in the Old Testament, the 10 Commandments were spoken by God first before they were written down.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And those words that are called the 10 Commandments are also called the 10 words of the covenant.
Okay.
They're the words of the covenant. Well, a covenant's an agreement.
Right.
And so it's an agreement with who? Well, we get into this a little bit more. It's between God and his people. Right after God speaks the 10 Commandments to his people, it was interesting because he told Moses something very interesting. He said, tell the Israelites to have no other God except me.
Right.
Don't even build an idol of gold or silver. Do not.
That's the very first commandment, isn't it? Is it not?
Have no other God before me.
Okay.
Yes. And he's reiterating that
sure.
very first one. Yes,
Okay.
man.
All right.
And he says, he made it
I got it.
He made it so clear. And so Moses tells the people this. And we know shortly thereafter, God calls Moses up on the mountain.
Right.
And he goes up there, and God gives him 2 tablets of stone written on both sides, the 10 Commandments.
Now, that was unique. And she pointed that out to me, and I was like, where is that in the Bible? But because it jogged my memory, like I'd heard it before, but I didn't know if it was true. In Exodus, if you go there, it literally says that the 10 Commandments that God wrote on both sides of those stone tablets. Now, that's interesting for me, because when I've always pictured Moses, the picture of him coming down off the mountain, he's holding 2 stone tablets, and it's, 5 here and 5 here. But they were actually both written on both sides.
Yes, and I think that was significant, Ben. And the reason is no one could add to it. He filled up the whole space.
Wow.
You can't add one little bit to what God had declared to be for that old covenant.
No number 11.
Yeah. No,
Okay.
another 11. I like it. Written on both sides on 2 stone tablets.
Yes.
Now, it's interesting, if you ever bought or sold a house, somebody gets an agreement on things, and the seller has a legal document and the buyer has a legal document. They look the exact same thing. They're an agreement. They have a covenant or an agreement legally together. They both sign it, agreeing on the terms of this sale. And that's exactly what I think I see here. You have 2 tablets.
Yes.
You have God, one for God that looks just like the one for man.
Yeah. Wow.
2 of them.
Wow.
Here. It was an agreement between God and the people.
An agreement, a covenant, and there's 2 of them. Fascinating.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
And so Moses stays up on the mountain for 40 days,
Yeah.
40 nights. He doesn't eat anything or drink anything.
Which, that in itself is a miracle, right? I mean, that has to be God just providing for him, obviously.
Well, he was right in the presence of the life giver.
Sure. Yeah.
Pouring
Okay,
into
good point.
him.
Good point.
And the Israelites got a bit nervous.
Okay.
It's been 30 days now, and they're thinking, what has happened to Moses?
Where's Moses? Is he dead?
Oh,
Is
we're
he
going to be
alive?
stuck out here in the middle of the wilderness.
Right,
You
right,
know?
right.
You can just imagine their thoughts.
Sure.
So they go to his brother Aaron, and they say, Aaron, what are we going to do?
Right.
How are we going to get led out of this wilderness? We don't even know what happened to Moses.
And that would be logical, kind of the guy second in command.
Exactly.
Okay.
And they said, what are we going to do? I mean, we're stuck out here in the wilderness. We need a God or somebody to lead us. Where are we going to go? And how are we going to get to this promised land?
Right.
And he says, well, just bring me all your gold. And he made it into a golden calf.
Yeah. It always blows my mind, that it's like God just told them, don't do this, and yet here he is.
That's exactly what they're doing.
Wow.
What God had told him not to do. About that time, Moses coming down off the mountain.
Right as they're finishing up the gold calf.
They had
Good
the calf.
timing, Aaron. Good timing.
And they're just all around this calf, just worshiping and carrying on in this
Oh,
celebration. Boy. And Moses was sick at heart. He throws down the 10 Commandments, and those stones just shatter.
Yeah. You may not know that. There was actually 2 sets of 10 Commandments.
Yeah.
There was version 1 and version 2, really, for lack of a better term. Like, Moses really got upset.
So he broke those 10 commandments, and because they had already broken their part of this covenant. The
Wow.
covenant was basically the agreement between God and the Israelites. It was basically over before they even got started, you might say.
Good grief.
That old covenant, the people couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So coming back to Revelation,
Uh-huh.
that scroll that God the Father is holding in his right hand of authority, sealed, completely sealed up with 7 seals, 7 being the number of completion,
Right.
is the new everlasting covenant. And it's written on both sides.
Interesting. The scroll is specifically written on both
Yes,
sides.
mentions that.
Just like the 10 Commandments are talked about.
Exactly.
Just what now that okay, see now that's what's incredible. Like it's little details like that are in the Old Testament and also in the New Testament. You mentioned, you were like, no, the new commandments, or the 10 Commandments rather, they were written on both sides. We had to go back and look, and sure enough, they are just like this scroll.
And they're
incredible.
Those are the words of the old covenant. These are the words of the new covenant.
Wow. Okay, but this one is sealed. It hasn't been opened yet.
Hasn't been opened yet.
Okay.
A mighty angel from the throne in a loud voice asked the question, who is worthy to break those seals and open this scroll? And they looked everywhere, but no one in heaven or in earth or under the earth or anywhere could open the scroll, let alone even look inside of it.
Nobody's qualified, really.
And John starts weeping and weeping because no one was qualified, like you
Okay,
say.
okay.
John is just in a dither.
Uh-huh.
What are we going to do? And an elder gives the answer.
Okay, one of these 24 elders.
One of the 24 elders gives an answer.
Okay.
His answer is in verses 5 and 6.
Okay, all right, so let's go ahead and read there. I know we're just now getting to the verses, but go ahead. If you have your Bibles, verses 5 through 6 in chapter 5. But one of the elders said to me, do not weep. Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the Root of David, has prevailed to open the scroll and to loose its 7 seals. And I looked, and behold, in the midst of the throne and of the 4 living creatures, and in the midst of the elders, stood a lamb as though it had been slain. Wow.
Isn't this amazing?
Right. It's all showing a picture of Jesus. Now, it makes sense. He would be the only one qualified.
Yes,
now,
totally
what's fascinating to me is this, is again, thinking from the perspective of the Old Testament for a minute, we see all of these hints to one who would come, talking about Jesus. We see this over and over again. We see Abraham referring to it, and Moses, all of these hints given by even the Old Testament prophets. And we see that perspective from earth, if you will. But this is really the first time that we're seeing kind of really into the throne room of God, literally. And the disappointment, maybe for lack of a better term, of people just, John is weeping. People are like, who in the world is going to fix this problem that we have? Man, God's creation is completely separated from him. Nobody's qualified to fix this except for Jesus.
Exactly.
And he comes along. Wow. Okay.
And I like what happens here. It's the same pattern we see all the way through Revelation. This elder says it's the Lion from the tribe of Judah,
Yes.
the Root of David. Notice he's the root, that source of life to David.
Wow.
So he's that king. But then you look, and that lion is the lamb.
Wow.
And this lamb, it looks like it's been slain, and it's standing
Okay.
right there in the center of the throne, standing ready to do something. It's interesting that in the Bible it talks about Jesus being the lamb slain from the foundation of the world. In other words, his death on the cross in our place, that's what the lamb represented, was from anybody, from Adam to the last person that ever lives, that chooses to say, yes, I believe in Jesus, the Son of God.
Wow. And to think that whole time, since the moment that Adam sinned, God has been holding that scroll in his hand, just waiting and waiting and waiting. And I mean, it's just, you get a glimpse as to the anticipation of this moment,
Yes.
I mean, just nobody's qualified except for one guy, and here he comes. Wow.
Ben, that is just, when you said that, it's just, that God himself has been waiting and waiting to open up this scroll. And Jesus, this lamb, has 7 horns. Now, horns are representative of power.
Authority, power, okay.
And authority. And so Jesus, being the number 7, he has absolute power.
Wow.
7 horns.
Wow.
And he also has the 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits gone out to the whole world, the Holy One, the Holy Spirit,
Yes.
rather, going out to the whole world to draw them to Jesus. And so Jesus, the Lamb, reaches out and takes that scroll out of the right hand of the Father.
Wow.
He is going to open this scroll.
So even for me, like that image seems so bold. I mean, you think about the throne of God, and it's just like, I just imagine myself just being prostrate, like face down, like can't even stand. Here comes Jesus, and just seeing his boldness in knowing who he is, that he's fully qualified to take that scroll from his hand. I mean, to even approach the throne, much less knowing that you're qualified and saying, I'm worthy to take this scroll from your hand. It's so powerful to see that image.
And I'll do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jesus is willing to do it.
Wow.
Too. I mean, that's amazing to me. When Jesus takes that scroll, the 4 living creatures and the 24 elders just fall down on their face.
Okay. So I'm not alone. See, this is what I would be doing. I'd be there among the, we are the 4 living creatures, right? So
Yes, that's what you're doing.
All right, yeah.
Exactly. And they had the...
See, it was like a little prophetic thing from that.
I love it.
Okay. All right.
And they had bowls of the incense of the prayers of the saints in their hands, and each of them held a harp.
Okay.
And they struck a chord and started singing a brand new song.
Okay.
And it's right here in the verses 9 and 10.
All right. Okay. So let's go ahead and read that, verses 9 and 10. And they sang a new song, saying, You are worthy to take the scroll and open its seals, for you were slain and have redeemed us to God by your blood. Perfect description of Jesus. Out of every tribe and tongue and people and nation, and have made us kings and priests, there it is again, to our God, and we shall reign on the earth. Wow.
It's powerful. And the angels get so excited that thousands and thousands and 10,000 and 10,000 celestial angels and beings get so excited they just join right in. Then in a loud voice they start singing, and that what they say together with them is in verse 12.
Okay, so the throne room is getting crowded at this point. It's all good though. It's all good.
It's very excited.
Yes. Okay, so verse 12, saying with a loud voice, Worthy is the Lamb who was slain to receive power and riches and wisdom and strength and honor and glory and blessing.
And now the whole earth gets in on the act. Every creature in heaven and in earth and on the sea and under the sea and all of them.
Wow.
Every single creature join the song and acknowledge that Jesus alone is worthy. That's in verse 13.
Okay, all right, let's read it. Verse 13, And every creature which is in heaven and on the earth and under the earth, and such as are in the sea, and all that are in them, I heard saying, Blessing and honor and glory and power be to him who sits on the throne and to the Lamb forever and ever. Wow. I can see why this is one of your favorite chapters.
Absolutely. And the 4 living creatures say, Amen, so be it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, right in the next
And
verse.
those 24 elders just fall down in absolute worship.
Wow.
It's powerful.
Really shows the qualifications of who Jesus was, what he did.
Absolutely.
I love the perspective, though, because this is, as far as I've ever read, this is one of the only ones that we see the view of what he did from heaven's perspective.
Yeah, that's so good.
Wow. Well, I guess, so that is it then for chapter 5, really. Or, I mean,
That's
again,
it.
there's always more. There's always more. But this is really, again, of the overview.
Hey.
Man, thank you for taking us through that, Bev. That was
Awesome.
really, really fun to see.
So tomorrow we're going to see Jesus ripping those seals off the scroll and opening up the inheritance.
Wow. Yeah, see, now this is why it's the middle chapter of that second section. Jesus just took it. He hasn't even opened it yet. So the exciting part is actually still yet to come. Again, this is why, if you haven't been able to tell yet, this is why she's here, because she makes these chapters really amazing. All right, guys. Well, again, thank you for being here. Hope you're having a beautiful day wherever you may be watching this from. Know that just what we're reading about here, it is for you just as much as it was for anyone back then, for Bev, for me. Jesus is for everybody. If you don't know him yet, come to him. It will be the best decision, bar none, you will ever make in your life. We love you guys. We'll see you back here tomorrow for chapter 6.